Let's see what goes on here. Connecting live video on Facebook. We are starting to connect, I think, on YouTube. Hang on a sec. That always takes us YouTube a few more seconds. There, I guess we're live.
We are.
And we're live on, I'm going to go live on Facebook. Or I think we're live on YouTube at the moment.
There we go.
Come on, Facebook, load up. There, I think we're live now. Okie
Yes,
dokie.
we are.
Okie dokie. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to our Sunday night offering of Astronomy Outreach, the Sunday Night Astronomy Show. First of all, I'd like to welcome back Royal Astronomical Society of Canada NB chapter member, Mr. Paul Owen. Big hands, Paul.
Hello.
From the Moon Shadow Observatory in Hampton. Unfortunately, Mike Powell is from the PFO Observatory, is not able to join us tonight. Mike is has other commitments, I guess making money or whatever, so whatever that means. Paying for more stuff. So we miss you, Mike, so we'll hope to have you back next week. And also, tonight we're welcoming another special guest on our program, fellow RASC member, author, astrophysicist, and friend John Reed. Hey, John.
Hey, everyone.
And John joins us from the RASC Halifax Center and is the author of at least 7 astronomy books that I could count in his 50 Things to See series. And John's going to talk to us a bit tonight about his current projects, what he's got on the go. And since he's written at least one book about the moon, he'll be a great source for later on for some information when we present you a live view of the moon a little bit later on. So welcome to the program, John.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Mike. Mike's online. Evening,
Hey,
buddy.
Mike.
Yep. Chicken coop salute for Mike. This is something we do. This is the kind of stuff we get into, John. So you have to get used to us.
Well, I just have to learn them. That's
there
all.
you go. Yeah. Chicken. This is called the chicken coop salute.
Got it.
Okay.
Reminds me of the Red Green Show.
Same idea. Yeah. Same idea. Only for astronomy.
I love it.
And Paul's back with us for another Rosanna's Fun Facts segment tonight, which fits in well with our theme tonight as it deals with our upcoming blue moon on Halloween night. We're really looking forward to that talk, Paul. John will also be giving our next topic in our new gearbox segment tonight, and he'll be giving us his thoughts on some beginner's telescopes. So actually, we're all going to kind of chime in there and what we think about beginner's telescopes, because we know Christmas is around the corner, and as John said, we got to pick out our gifts for our little nerdy kids and our grandkids or whatever, or even for ourselves that are nerdy. So
we are the nerdy kids.
We are the nerdy ones. Yeah. Well, we are now, and we're on YouTube now too. So there. Also, during the last couple of weeks, we've been hearing a whole lot about Mars in the media, since Mars has just passed its closest approach to us, and in its point of opposition to us as well. Well, Paul has been capturing some great images of the red planet, and he's going to share with us some interesting information that he's learned over the last little while researching his target. And he's also going to provide us a live view of our gibbous moon tonight, so we can talk a lot about our celestial neighbor as well. And we're going to squeeze in your wonderful photo submissions, hopefully too, from the past couple of weeks. So the moon, Mars, astronomy books to discuss, telescopes to review. Sounds like another busy show, guys. So folks, sit back and enjoy. And remember, this is a family-friendly live broadcast. So if you have any questions about the night sky, we're happy to try and answer them for you here. So we're going to get started with a brief view about what's new in space this week. And I guess that's up to me. And first of all, we're going to say hello to Robert, Trudy, and Sighorn. Welcome, folks. Mike, Eve, Saint Germain, greetings from Miramichi, and Emma. Good evening, Emma. Who else we get on here? I got to scroll down my list here. Mike, don't give away my spot quite yet. Oh, look, Mike, this is 3 on the screen, so we always get a room for a 4th. Astronomy from the bubble. That's right, Mark. Okay, let's get into our what's in space this week. So I'm going to share my screen, guys, so you guys can see what's going on. Present my entire screen here. I'm going to say this one, I guess. No, I want to do this one. Share. And get rid of that address. Okay, so let me see if I can get my other screen. I've only got 5 here to go. I've got to find which one I need. I think it's this guy. See where this ends up.
One for every finger, right?
That's it. That should end up on your screen, I think. You guys able to
Yes.
see that? Okay. So what's new in space this week? Well, NASA's spacecraft has really made a mess of things on the asteroid Bennu, and scientists are thrilled. The spacecraft NASA's Osiris-Rex probe briefly touched down on Bennu Tuesday afternoon in the space agency's first ever attempt to collect samples of an asteroid. Bennu and the spacecraft are more than 200 million miles from Earth. Osiris-Rex touched a rocky region of Bennu called Nightingale with a spindly arm tipped with a hubcap-shaped collection plate. At the moment of contact, which lasted just 6 seconds, the spacecraft fired off a puff of nitrogen gas to essentially blow tiny pieces of the 500-meter wide Bennu into its collection device. And I'll scroll over. Now, 2 days after touching down on asteroid Bennu, NASA's Osiris-Rex team received on Thursday, October 22nd, images that confirm the spacecraft has collected more than enough material to meet one of its main mission requirements, acquiring at least 2 ounces or 60 grams of the asteroid's surface material. Well, the spacecraft captured images of the sample collector head as it moved through several different positions. In reviewing these images, the Osiris-Rex team noticed that that the head had appeared to be full of asteroid particles, and that some of these particles appeared to be escaping slowly from the sample collector, called the touch-and-go sample acquisition mechanism, or TAGSAM. They suspect bits of material are passing through small gaps where a mylar flap, the collector's lid, is slightly wedged open by larger rocks. So that's a bad thing, but it's also a good thing. So it shows that they've got a pretty good sample there. A lot more than 60 grams, I'd say. So the team believes it has collected a sufficient sample and is on its path to stow the sample as quickly as possible. They came to this conclusion after comparing images of the empty collector head with October the 22nd images of TAGSAM head after the sample collection event. Now, the Osiris-Rex team will focus on stowing the sample in the sample return capsule, where any loose material will be kept safe during the spacecraft's journey back to Earth, and it should arrive back home in 2023. So we're showing the actual procedure there. Here's the cap, the protective dome that they're going to store it in. So Osiris-Rex will come back with that piece there attached, of course, and then that's the piece that's going to come down through the atmosphere and have our sample.
So do you know how they're going to capture it? So a lot of the times when they bring these samples back, the idea is it parachutes down and then they fly over it with a helicopter and catch the parachute with a hook. So I'm not sure if that's the plan for this one, or they're just going to land in the desert. Do you know?
Yeah, they are using a parachute to bring it down through. And they are going to land it in the desert, but I'm not sure exactly what happens in that procedure, if they are going to hook the parachute or not. But I mean, it would be tough to find otherwise, right? like a needle in a haystack. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure of the capture method at the end.
Yeah. Because it reminds me of how spy satellites used to work before digital cameras. They used to put them in film and then shoot the film back into the atmosphere.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and catch it with they used an airplane back then, and they would catch it with a hook and the parachute.
Cool.
Neat.
They're really smart people. Like when I saw that procedure that they did, it was amazing to think of what they did. Not only did they orbit the asteroid for almost 2 years, I guess, and it has such a small gravity anyway that it was very difficult to get it captured. But when they were ready to go, like they went around the site, around the asteroid many times to take a look at different sites that they could select for the actual collection spot. And when they got it down to 2, they zoomed in even closer to take a look at those 2 sites. And then when they were ready to actually do the collection, they dropped down from their regular orbit. And in the last 10 or 15 feet or so, it was all autonomous. It made its own decision on whether or not it could actually land and pick up the material and take off again without hitting a rock or anything else. And they actually even had to match the speed of the. They had to bring it down so far, and then they had to match the speed of the asteroid as it rotated to be sure that they were still right over the top of that same spot. So, like, amazing programming, and they're doing this from 200 million miles away. Like, so it's just. It's incredible what these people can do now. We're going to move on to the next category before I get into too much time here. So NASA has tapped the Houston-based company Intuitive Machines to land an ice mining drill on the south pole of the moon in 2022. Under the deal, NASA will pay Intuitive Machines $47 million to deliver the space agency's Polar Resources ice mining experiment, or Prime 1, to the moon's south pole. It is the first ever mission designed to harvest water ice from inside the moon, NASA officials said. Now, moon ice is a resource NASA hopes to exploit under its Artemis program, which aims to return astronauts to the moon in 2024. And we're all talking about the South Pole now, right? This is the big deal. And even China, China is preparing for more lunar missions. The China National Space Administration's Lunar Exploration and Space Engineering Center opened a competitive call last month for institutions to develop payloads for 5 different spacecraft that are part of the nation's upcoming Chang'e 7 mission. Chang'e 7 is scheduled to launch in 2024 and is being designed to land on the lunar south pole and to study the region from orbit. And from the NASA site this week, NASA will announce an exciting new discovery about the moon from the Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, or SOFIA, at a media teleconference at 1 p.m. tomorrow. NASA says this new discovery contributes to its efforts to learn about the moon in support of deep space exploration. Under NASA's Artemis program, the agency will send the first woman and the next man to the lunar surface in 2024 to prepare for our next giant leap, human exploration of Mars, as early as the 2030s. So really kind of curious what this announcement's going to be all about.
Yeah, it's interesting because the telescope that they're using is SOFIA, so it's mounted on the back of a 747, and so what it does, it generally goes, it flies over the Pacific and does this big loop and does its science, but the camera on it sees in the infrared, which are longer wavelengths than visual light, and so you generally see slightly less detail. So it's curious to me, so what exactly are they looking at when they're using SOFIA to observe the moon? So I don't know. So it's going to be really exciting to find out, especially since most of the science we get from the moon comes from orbiters that are, orbiting only a couple hundred miles above the lunar surface. So
that might lead
what are they doing?
That might lead right into our next topic. And finally, a playwright is looking for alien actors to audition for parts in his newly published play, dramatizing real-life UFO mysteries. John Steiger, 61, reckons intelligent life is listening to our every move on Earth, and he hopes that they see this message in the Daily Star and apply for a job. Now, he called on alien theater companies to produce play scripts, which are dramatizations of real-life UFO mysteries, such as the Roswell incident. John said they would have to audition just like everyone else, and given my faith in human thespians, they're going to have a tough time winning any role. Intelligent life might be listening or monitoring us, although admittedly I have no way of knowing the extent to which it is or it is not happening. I fear that my plays are not at the top of their list of alien concerns about the human activities here on Earth. Now, his 3 plays include stories about a courtroom jury deciding whether the infamous 1947 Roswell UFO crash was faked, and the scripts were published in British UFO expert Philip Mantle's Flying Disc Press yesterday. He said, "We have already had interest from Scandinavia and Germany, and were it not for a COVID-19 pandemic, these plays, or at least of them, might have already been in production." And that's what's happening in space this week. So, aliens looking for a spot on a show. Yeah, cool.
There you go.
All right.
So we're back. John, we always try to end John with a little bit of a light segment. Yeah. So
I love it. We all thought E.T. was a puppet.
there, yeah.
Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go.
Turns out it was actually he auditioned and he got the job.
Yeah, we're the puppets. Yeah, it's a conspiracy. We're the puppets, really.
It was, yeah.
Love it.
I mean, we didn't see Elliot, the kid, and anything else, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Where'd he go?
That's right.
Oh, E.T. was so excited, he actually called home and let them know that he got the part.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, if we're going to talk conspiracy, just give me one more second here. We'll talk another conspiracy for a second.
No, don't do it.
Here we go. I'll just share one thing. Hang on, if I can find it. Oh, where's my mouse? It's rolling around 5 screens. Okay, here we go. I think this is it. I gotta get it the right spot though. I gotta bring it down to this screen. Oh, come on. Are you not gonna move? Pardon me, folks. Just bear with me.
He talks to his computer all the time.
We're having technical difficulties. That's it. Here we go.
Yeah.
This will do it, I think. We'll just go to the large screen. So here's what flat earthers think happened to the dinosaurs.
Well, that's extinction.
That's extinction.
Oh,
All right, we're back.
funny.
Let's go to full screen. Here we go. Okay, so we're back, and I guess next we're going to lead into John's talk, or I guess our talk about telescopes, what we should be looking at for Christmas presents. Hey, John?
Yeah, exactly. So Christmas is coming, and everyone's astronomy is huge this year, if anyone hasn't noticed. And there have been a lot of people jumping into the hobby because they're stuck in their own backyards.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if anyone's been shopping for telescopes recently, but a lot of them are just sold out. So the manufacturers are having trouble keeping inventory, and prices have gone way up with a lot of telescope equipment. I know this scope has doubled in price in the last year or so. Little Newtonians have doubled, and in some case they've tripled in price. One of my kids he's got a 4-inch Newtonian, and we paid $129 for it, which is a really great price for a starter scope, almost a reasonable price. But now that scope is well over $300, and that's almost out of the range of what most people want to spend as a Christmas present.
Right.
So the question is, well, how do you find that balance between what you're willing to spend, on your maybe 12-year-old kid or almost 40-year-old kid, and not get something that's terrible, which I think because the prices of telescopes have gone up and they're hard to get a hold of, a lot of people are saying, hey, my budget's only $100, and then there's this telescope that has a ton of 5-star reviews on Amazon. I'm just going to get that. And what people are getting is this telescope.
Oh,
See if I can get it here, right?
yeah.
And so this telescope has thousands and thousands of 5-star reviews.
Really?
And what? Yeah. But and in the pictures, it looks like it's a big telescope, and there's fancy pictures of the moon and planets and stuff. But I guess for one, I'm not sure those reviews are real.
Yeah.
Because if we look at what it takes to view things in space, and I like to talk about the three tests, and there's actually 5 tests if anyone's seen my latest video. But there's 5 tests that you can do to see if your telescope is going to be good for looking at things in space. And as set up, as it comes out of the box, this telescope fails all the tests. Now, that doesn't mean it's a bad telescope. I actually put $4,000 worth of camera equipment on this and got an amazing photo of the Andromeda Galaxy.
That was crazy. Yeah.
So, but out of the box, not so much. And so, yeah, so what's happening is a lot of people are buying scopes like these, and they'll go out, try to use it for things in space and fail. And then it goes in the closet, and they sort of say goodbye to the hobby. So a lot of it, I think this year, if you've got less than $100 or less than $150 maybe, it's probably not the year to go invest in a telescope, or it's the year that, hey, let's invest a little more and get a telescope that we can use for years and years that we know is going to be good. The question is, how do you pick and who do you trust? Because I guarantee you can't trust Amazon reviews right now. Because you've got a ton of telescopes that aren't going to be any fun at all, that are reviewing people are just writing glowing reviews. And I'm guessing these people are robots.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you're going to get the telescope home and be like, yeah, I've had a great experience. I'm going to go write a review. Yeah, so you guys want to go through the 5 tests? They're kind of fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's see if I can remember them. Okay, so test number 1. You want to see if the telescope can point, is easy to use when it's pointed straight up. So that's test number 1. So you can take your telescope here, and now we're going to comfortably use this to look at space.
Yeah. While we lay on the ground. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, no. Even and the reason that this is really not it's difficult is because this is a 45-degree erecting eyepiece. This is designed for landscapes. It's designed for watching a bird that's not really moving very much in the distance. And so that's test number 1. Test number 2 is it easy to move the scope left and right and up and down? But with these scopes, this is actually a camera tripod. Telescopes come on mounts. This is just a tripod. And so if you try and move it up and down and left and right, it's not necessarily, no, I've got this one about set pretty much right, but you've got different like tightnesses. It'll fall forward, it'll fall backwards. It's not really that easy. And even if you do get it fairly well balanced, where you think you're leaving it where you put it, it then will fail test number 3. And that's when you're looking at something in space and you let go because you want to let go, because otherwise, if you're touching the scope, things bounce around. You want to let go. But if you're using this scope and you point it at the moon and then you let go, it's not going to be pointed at the moon anymore. There's enough tension and play in the mount that it's sort of going to flick up. And so if you were to buy this scope and you wanted to use it for outer space, what you would need to do is take it off the camera tripod, and it's actually got a Vixen-style mounting plate, which to me suggests that, hey, that they're actually thinking that you're going to do this, and put it on an actual astronomy mount. Because this could actually be used as a guide scope or a secondary telescope or a wide field. If you want to look at wide field views of something like a comet, this telescope would work for that. So they've designed it to be placed on a telescope mount. So those are the main 3 tests that you can do. And most of the other telescopes, like the Celestron Inspire telescope, will pass all those tests. And this Newtonian, I haven't tested it yet, but I'm assuming it'll do okay. The third test, because now we're on test number 4. We're getting to the fun ones. Everyone wants to take pictures of things in space. And most people don't realize that to take a decent picture in space takes about $5,000 worth of equipment. But what about an okay picture? We can do planetary imaging and pictures of the moon, for basically the equipment you already have around the house. So the question is, can you put an iPhone on it? If you've got, you can buy an adapter for $10, or if you have someone in the family that already has a telescope and you want to get them a really fun one, Canadian Tire actually had the Next YZ. That's this.
Oh, really?
Probably the best one out there. They had it for $39, I think.
What?
Which is amazing.
When? Recently?
Yeah, I think it was recently. So in the States, that's what the price of these are.
Yeah.
They're $39.
Yeah, they're $80.
I think I paid $59, and I got this at Canadian Tire. But so you want to know, can it hold it? Can your telescope hold the iPhone mount? And with this, it weighs it down. And then number 5, which is the most fun test. You want to know, can your mount take a punch? I think you should be able to, just give your telescope a little hit and pretend it's being knocked around in the field and have it not go anywhere. Well, if I give this a punch, it's going flying.
Yeah.
If I give that a punch, I'm going to break my hand.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my rule number 5. The telescope, it should be sturdy enough that it's, you can trip over it and you're going to get hurt, not the scope.
Right.
And so those are the 5 tests. And so if we want to talk about telescopes that pass those tests, there's actually under $300, let's say, there's not a whole lot out there right now. And there's a lot of telescopes that are almost up to $400 and $500 that will then fail most of those tests. And that's really sad. So, my cats are meowing right over here.
That's okay.
Very distracting cats. At least they haven't jumped up on the keyboard.
That's good. Well, fun. They like astronomy too.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to pull my computer out
Don't
there. Yeah. And so if we look at this scope right here, see if I can get it in frame. Anyway, so this is an example of a scope that you would have for years and years. And there's a couple other features to it that make it, you know, sort of go from good to great in terms of a first telescope. So it passes all the tests fairly well. You know, it's got the 90-degree diagonal, so you're not going to be getting a neck. You're not going to get a neck injury while you're looking at things that are high in the sky. It's got a great finder here. It's got basically this type of proprietary telrad for Celestron. It's actually got a red light, and this is one of my favorite features. So it's got a red light built into the mount, so that if you're using, you know, one of my books, in this case the workbook, and your job is to find things and then sketch them as you see them, you've got a you know, a place to set the book, and you can actually write in it under this red light and not lose your night vision. It's also got a decent aperture. I don't know if you can see the aperture is the diameter of the primary lens in this case, and that's what determines the resolution of what you're able to see. So how the level of fine details that you'll be able to see on your objects is determined by that aperture, and that's pretty much the only thing that determines the resolution is the aperture. So in terms of magnification, this is an f6. So those like long, skinny telescopes, those have high focal ratios. So the reason they have high focal ratios is so they can zoom in on planets, or so that the box can advertise that it can zoom into like 400 times. Yeah. But really, the other reason that they're long and skinny is so that they can use less quality optics. Because if you use a shorter tube, then it's harder to get all the colors to be in focus at the same focal length. And so that's called chromatic aberration. Expensive telescopes have different plates of glass that correct for that, but you're not going to get that in a beginner telescope. Now this is a nice mix. So I actually like telescopes that are shorter and have smaller focal lengths because they're more forgiving. You see more sky, and the objects that you do see appear brighter. And in the case of the refractor, refractors being lenses, not mirrors like a Newtonian, they have really good contrast. So using this telescope in dark skies, I had no problem seeing galaxies, which is really you know, high praise for a beginner scope.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to clarify galaxies, because galaxies to us with our eyeball look like little dust balls. We don't get to see a whole lot of detail, right? So yeah,
there's not a whole lot of detail, but so I tested this on M81 and M82. So those are two galaxies that you can fit into the same field of view. One looks like a blob, and the other one looks like a cigar. But they're a great little target. Use sort of the Big Dipper as a guidepost to sort of find your way. So this does not have a computer in it, and so if you've got a budget for like let's say you've got a budget of $1,000 for a first telescope, then you're going to be looking at sort of the Nexstar Celestron SE series, and that's going to, you know, but then you're in a different sort of ball game. You're not at an entry level price point anymore. Use sort of the Big Dipper as a guidepost. I'm hearing an echo there.
Oh, Paul, did you have your sound up? Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I just pressed the button by mistake.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. And so some people really like that computer to be able to tell them exactly where to point the telescope, or in the case of that Nexstar series, it actually moves the telescope for them. And then they think that they'll be able to take pictures with it of galaxies and stuff, and the answer is no. You know, you need a good equatorially mounted telescope to do that. So for me, I like, until you make that leap, I like Dobsonians I like Dobsonians a lot. The issue is, if you're getting a telescope as a gift, a Dobsonian, that's sort of the big telescopes, like Chris has behind him there. You have to lug them places, and that can be a deterrent from using it. Versus a 4-inch refractor, you're just going to pick it up with one hand and put it in the backyard. And if what you're seeing is behind a tree, you just pick it up and move it to the next spot, and you're good to go. And so that's the advantage of a non-computerized scope that is just grab and go. You can move it around the yard. A computerized one, you have to realign every time you move it. It takes about 15 minutes. So of the sort of entry-level telescopes, the Celestron Inspire 100 AZ is actually one of the only ones, and I'm very specific about this, that it's the 100 model. There are different models in this category, like a 70 AZ and an 80 AZ. The difference is those are the long tube refractors. So they're a very different scope because they're not going to see the dim objects as well as an f6 scope, a shorter scope. You lose a lot of the ability to see bright things when you stretch that focal length into a long telescope.
Right.
Yeah.
There it is.
So there's this Astromaster 70. So that's sort of the generation before this one. That is a great scope for the moon. It's a great scope for the planets, but it's a poor scope for deep sky objects.
Absolutely.
Now, there is one option for the Dobbs, though, too, is the tabletop Dobbs. Like they work very well for a beginner scope. They're
great on a budget as well. The issue I have with the tabletop is they're harder to scoot around. I'm always in places with trees when I stargaze, so I need and I can't move the table with me.
Right.
As I go.
There's a guy called Eyes in the Skies. He does a YouTube channel, but he also has a video out there where he builds a tripod for the tabletop, and it's just a piece of 1/2-inch plywood, and he uses 3 2x4s with 3 hinges on it, and the hinges kind of fold in like that, so he can kind of take it out, open it up, and he can get it at the right height, and the tabletop sits on top of it. So something like that is nice, but you do have to make that adjustment unless you have a picnic table handy or something like that in your yard. But
and the tabletops are good from a budget standpoint because you get because aperture is sort of what you're looking for. You're looking for the biggest mirror you can get in your budget generally.
Yeah.
I mean, a Dobsonian always wins, but then you get what like Chris has behind you, and then you can't lift it.
Yeah.
Or you don't want to, or you don't want to lift
oh,
it.
about that.
Yeah. So going back to the go-to mount, so Celestron came up with a solution, and that's to use your phone, and like everyone has the stargazing app on their phone, so it's like they got that, but what this scope does is it does something called plate solving, and plate solving is where your telescope always knows exactly where it's pointed. Even if you pick it up and carry it across the lawn and put it back down, as soon as it looks at the sky, it knows exactly where it's pointed. And so Celestron figured out a way to put the software into your phone, and they've got a device on the back of the scope. I'm going to take my headphones off here for a second. There, let me move the camera up here. Anyway, so there's a device on the back of the scope, and it's got a mirror in it. I can't actually get it off here. But it uses the camera, bounces the light from space off a mirror and into your phone's camera, and it does that math. It always knows where it's pointed. And then there's basically an arrow on your phone, like a compass rose, and it tells you to point your telescope up and down and left and right until your telescope is pointed exactly at the target every time. And this telescope, at least in the States, is under $200. And so that is a huge win for them in terms of getting a telescope that points exactly where you put it every time, that's easy to use, that is under $200. Now, I actually buy my telescopes for the most part used. I go to bnhphoto.com, and every day I search their used telescope listings. And so I actually bought this for exactly $100, and they ship it up for free to Canada from New York.
Oh, really? Free shipping.
Free shipping to Canada, yeah. So I
Wow.
bought, sometimes you get dinged with a custom charge. You know, it's sort of like gambling there.
Yeah.
But even the Celestron AVX, so this is about $1,500 in Canada or $1,200, something like that. So I paid $500 for it.
Wow. Good.
Just by shopping that. I mean, it was used, but I just check it every day and see what's up.
Oh, yeah.
And you can use Cloudy Nights or Facebook Marketplace as well. But you almost want to know exactly what you're looking for. So you don't want to be like, oh, there's a telescope that's in my price range, I'm going to buy that. It's like, no. You want to wait until the Celestron 100 AZ refractor that is f6 comes up.
Right. Right.
You know.
That one behind you, John, the Celestron. So is that available locally, or is that?
Yeah, I'm sure if you went to a camera, I don't know who your telescope distributor is. Ours is Atlantic Photo Supply.
Yeah, Ivan's camera. I think in Moncton is the one that's the main one. I think, Paul, isn't it? Would it be Ivan's? Yeah, Ivan's.
And they could probably order it in for you. So Ontario Telescope, I believe, has these, and there's 4 different models too, at 4 different price points. So they have an F5 Newtonian as well, and I know it's about $400 US, and so that's a much nicer scope, and it has slow motion controls and all sorts of bells and whistles, and it uses the StarSense technology as well. The thing about that is, I feel like at whatever price that is in Canada, I think that in Canadian dollars, that's going to be over $500. There's a lot better scope you could get for that price in a different model, and we'd have to talk about that. But in their lower price models, below $200, they're adding this for the same price as an equivalent scope, and I thought that was interesting. So I haven't tested this one yet. So after I get it out under the night sky, and I'll make a YouTube video about that and post it on learntostargaze.com, which is my website, and then hopefully I'll get it up on all my social media channels as well, and you can watch it there and see what I think about this and how it compares to the other scopes.
We want to mention that too. LearnToStargaze.com. That's where you're at, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
And
if I could just ask a question, John, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We get some people that are actually chiming in with some questions, and some questions may be getting a little ahead of where we are because I think I know where you're going anyway. But one question was, have you tried any Mead products?
Well, one, I think Mead is out of business right now, so I'm not sure they're coming out with new things. So I've owned, or at least borrowed, I've owned the 8-inch Mead Newtonian, and my first scope was a Mead ETX60, my first non-toy scope. And so, I mean, it's a great company, and I think the issue you might run into is support.
Right.
And just they're not making new things right now, and also Mead and all the other companies, they buy telescopes at the lowest bidder and put their name on it. So there's going to be a lot of telescopes out there with the Mead name and the Celestron name that aren't good. It's just the way it is. Yeah. And so again, you want to be very specific about the model that you want and what you're looking for in a telescope. If it's just the generic beginner, I'm giving this as the gift because my son has been stargazing without a telescope and I can tell he's going to use it. You want to be specific about the telescope, and it may be this Celestron, and it might be this one. I don't know. I haven't tested it. Yeah. I know that Celestron 100 AZ passes all my tests in terms of something you could use for a lifetime. But yeah. Any other questions? Because this is good.
Yeah, we do. Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say just staying on the Mead topic for a minute. At the same token, even though it's hard to get the newer products or support with Mead, they did make a lot of products over the years that are extremely good products. So if you are looking for a telescope that's sort of in that maybe mid to even a little more upper end, you can find a lot of those good telescopes on those used astronomy sites, especially if you're looking for something in the lines of solar telescopes, along the lines of the Solar Max and those sort of things, because those were terrific telescopes. And if they were taken care of, which most people do, on these used Astro sites. People are very good with their products. You can get a lot of really good mead products today that are from, you know, from yesteryear, but the technology realistically hasn't changed a lot in the optics over the last few years. So they are available, but new, then yeah, absolutely, John, that's right on the head.
So one of the main sites you'd probably want to look at is astrobuycell.com. That's the one we probably all visit, you know, quite often. That's a national used astronomy site, and at the top of that site, there's actually a number of banners up there with links to the major telescope suppliers in Canada. There may be a couple that are missing, but most of them are there. And like John says, in most of those locations, they have a used section as well. So you can scan through their used section to take a look. And, you know, everything I've bought, well, even this one behind me, well, I got this from Adrian, I guess, but most of the scopes that I purchased in the past have all been used. And it's, you know, I'm not worried about buying used because, like Paul says, you know, people who have optical equipment like this generally look after it. The biggest damage that something like this gets, of course, is your transportation back and forth in the vehicle. Once you set it on the ground and you're observing with it, you're not doing any damage to it. So people may forget to take, you know, put a cover on top of it, a lens cap or something like that. So I wouldn't be afraid to look at accessories, and accessories can run you as much as your telescope. Once you get the telescope and you say, yeah, I can see the moon, but if I really want to see the moon, I better get this eyepiece, right? And that can really start to cost quite a bit. You can pay a lot of money for eyepieces, up to $1,000 for an eyepiece. And you may get some for $10 too. So it's all on what you really want and where your level of expertise is going to take you, what you plan on doing with the equipment afterwards. So I would suggest astrobuycell.com, and like John says, Facebook Marketplace is another great place to go to. Kijiji is another one that's pretty popular. Again, if you have a question about them, you can send one of us a message, and we'll help you out as far as if you've looked at one and you said, you know, is this one any good? One of us on here for sure would help you with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
there was another question for you too, John. If you don't mind, Chris.
I'm gonna, you know, something. I'm gonna step. I'm the host, but I should be step away. But I want to go grab my tabletop dab and bring it in and show. Show that one too. Sure. Give me about. It's in my car. Give me about a minute. Right back.
Yeah, hit me with some questions because I don't see the comments or anything where I am.
So the question we had a moment ago. Let me just get back to, there it is. The difference between a refractor and a reflector. And without getting into it too technical, I guess if I'm looking for a telescope, and I guess the advantages and disadvantages more than anything.
Yeah, and I ran into this. So this is a reflector. So the way it works is you've got a mirror, a primary mirror at the back that gathers the light from space, and you've got a secondary mirror at the front that directs the light from the primary into the eyepiece. So the challenge here, and why I was able to get this telescope for $100 is because it was out of what's called collimation. And so that's the alignment of the mirror. So are they perfectly aligned so that the telescope works? And when I got it, it wasn't. And it is a skill to be able to fix that. And, you know, I have that skill from owning 5 or 6 of these. But if you don't have it, you're sort of out of luck. And you might, you know, sometimes you can get a laser that'll help fix it, and the laser's like $20. But for this one, it doesn't work. You got to do it the old-fashioned way because there's that corrector lens in there somewhere that makes the laser not work. And so the Newtonian telescopes, it should work from the factory forever, but it might not. And so that's where the big advantage of the refractor telescope comes in, because a refractor doesn't need collimation. I mean, it's really just like holding a magnifying glass at arm's length. Like, that's how complicated a refractor telescope is. And then you put an eyepiece just to get it in focus, you know, at the other end. So refractors are much, much simpler. And they also tend to be more transportable. So like this will fold right up and I'll just throw in the car. The Newtonians are a little bit more gangly. And unless you've got a tabletop like Chris has there, they're very transportable for the given aperture. The other advantage of refractors and although this might be a little bit subjective, is the contrast in the image is claimed to be higher in the refractor than the Newtonian. So there's that too. So just the quality of the image that you get for a given aperture might be higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the difference between the two optics, I guess, to a degree, would be that the refractor can cause chromatic aberration, and I don't think you get that with the Newtonian.
No, you don't. So if you're looking at Saturn with a telescope like this, actually Saturn's pretty okay with this, but Jupiter for sure. You get it in focus, as sharp as you can make it, there's going to be a blue halo on one side, and that's because, at least for this telescope, the blue light from Jupiter didn't come into focus at the same focal length as the rest of Jupiter. And so that's called chromatic aberration. So if you were to try to take, if you were to put this telescope on that mount and put those cameras on it, it wouldn't work because all the stars would have sort of a red hat and a blue bottom. And because there's no way you're going to get them all the colors in focus at the same time. Newtonians aren't going to have that issue. And this telescope is this exact same size as this one. It just has, $1,500 in corrector lenses inside it, so you don't need to deal with that.
Yeah.
But for most star clusters that you're looking at, you're not going to run into that, even with a beginner telescope. Like the companies have designed it in such a way that if you're using the telescope as designed, you're not going to run into those issues too bad. So it's not something necessarily to worry about. Again, the downside for me looking at Jupiter is that the Jupiter has a blue halo on one side.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Thanks.
Here's that little tabletop I was going to show. Just see if I can tilt the camera down a bit. I think that's probably do it. So there's a little one that I was referring to, the Orion Star Blast 4.5. So it's got a nice 4.5-inch mirror in it, reflector mirror there, and it comes with an easy finder too, pointer, and a fairly good focuser, not bad. But the biggest thing about this is that this is your operation. It's right to left and it's up and down, and there's nothing simpler. To find an object in the sky, if I want to try to find the moon, I look through the finder, and there's the moon, or maybe there's Mars over there. It's quite easy to use, quite easy to handle. It does have a clutch on this side, so you can adjust it. There are collimation screws here as well that you can collimate the mirror if you want. The mirrors are out of focus. That's something we can talk about in another issue or another episode. Now, also, it folds down like this very easily, and there's a handle. So it weighs about maybe 4 pounds. Pretty simple. So throw that in the front seat of your car, throw a seatbelt around it, and away you go. Like I do.
And it's also, those finders are really nice.
Yeah.
So versus a lot of scopes will come with the finder scopes, the little telescope.
Right.
And if you're a beginner, these finder scopes can be very tough to use. The other thing is because the image, they're usually mirror reversed as well. So you push it this way, the image scoots that way, and it can give you a bit of a headache.
Yeah.
Whereas the red dot that the other scopes have, you're basically just, exactly where your target is in the sky, and you put the red dot on it.
Right, exactly.
The most important thing to do in either case, though, and your telescope almost won't work without it, you need to make sure during the day you point the scope and the finder at a chimney or something in the distance, and make sure they're pointed at exactly the same spot.
Right.
If you try to do that at night, or if you forget to do that, it's going to be an extremely frustrating experience.
And you can't do it on an object that's moving across the sky like the moon, because those things move too quickly. So and that is the number one question I get too, or complaint that I get from people saying, I can't find anything. And then you ask them if they've lined up their finder, and they're not sure exactly what you're talking about. But when you mention that and they do get the finder aligned, they're so happy. Like they just, wow, I can see things now. So it makes big difference.
The other thing I don't know if everyone realizes is that you actually see a red dot in the finder. So some people might just look through it and see the screen. Yeah. And it's also good to go to the dollar store.
Which is what's wrong with mine right now. I left it on, so the battery's dead. How long does it take to kill a battery in a finder? Like, it takes years, but this one did.
It takes a while. But They're usually 2032 batteries, and you can buy a 3-pack for $1.25 at Dollarama.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right.
So usually spend $2.50,
Yeah.
get 6, and then you're good for
You're
life.
good. That's right. I do like this little scope for that purpose. When I was talking about a tripod, right now I've got it sitting on a little table. If you had a picnic table in your backyard or a small little camp table, you can set it on that. Great for kids, even at its own height. Also, the tripod that I referred to is just like a piece of half-inch plywood. It had 3 pieces of 2x4 down the side. They were all hinged so they can kind of fold in, and you can make that to whatever height you're comfortable with if you're going to go with that style. A 4.5-inch reflector for about 300 and I think they're about 325 now for that model. I think the Orion though comes out of the States, but they've got a similar one at Ontario Telescopes, I know, and I think Ivan's as well. It's called a Skywatcher. It's a 5-inch, 130
That's the
millimeter.
Heritage.
Yeah,
It's called the Heritage
that's
130 in Canada. Yeah. If you're in the States, it's called the One Sky Telescope. And usually, I think if you buy one, they donate one to a third world country.
That's true.
Which is pretty cool.
Yep. And it's a nice 5-inch. I mean, that's a nice piece of glass. 5-inch glass for $300.
Yeah, and that one extends. Yeah,
Yes.
it extends and collapses.
So it's
the challenge with that one, the focus, it doesn't have focus knobs.
No.
You twist the eyepiece in the what's called a helical focuser.
Yeah.
Um,
that's a bit more
and
of a
that's
challenge.
how you get. Yeah. So this is a helical focuser here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's got numbers on the side. The advantage is you can look at the number and remember where you put it, I guess. But
yeah.
That's the only reason I could think of that he included that.
Yeah. But for a beginner scope, I mean, they're a nice little package. I think I've had this. I got that one for $100, and it was used. And somebody just said, actually, no, this is my second one. The $100 one I gave away as a contest. This one I paid $50 for. So I mean, for $50, it's it's well. It would last me a lifetime if I just wanted to do some quick. And the thing about a portable telescope like that is that, I've got 5 minutes. Oh, there's a moon. Boom, out you go. Quick look at the moon. I mean, this one will accept a camera support too, so you can mount your phone on that. I was doing it tonight, actually, showing people, and I've done it a number of times on my live feeds, show people the moon through this little scope. And then when you're done with it, bring it inside, and it's quick out and back. And the thing about a telescope, as we all know, is that the telescope that you like the most is the one that you use the most, and the one that's the least amount of work to set up. Right? You're not gonna, if it's minus 20 outside, you're not gonna spend an hour setting up a telescope. You want something quick to get outside, take a quick look, and back in the house again. And that's where you are. So I mean, when you're getting into guys like Paul now, who's into astrophotography, started out with small scopes, gets the bigger scopes, and now he's back into small scopes again, like because he wants the wide field of view. So it
really does go full circle. Like you start and then you go up, and then it's
right back again.
It's the enthusiasm that gets you the big scopes, and the practicality gets you the small scopes.
That's right.
Exactly.
They know where you're going.
The hot ticket this year is, I think it's the 61 millimeter astrophotography telescope. So like the red cat, and now everyone's talking all the drama around the Radiant Raptor. So if you know an astrophotographer and you've got $1,000 budget, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for Christmas. They're wanting these 61.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, they're one of these
like that on a great big mountain behind me.
Yeah, the telescopes are this big. They come with a little fanny pack usually. And they go on mounts like this.
Yeah.
They're pretty funny because they're the same size almost as the guide scope. So that's a 50 millimeter.
Yeah.
So I mean, all we did tonight was talk about telescopes. There's a whole lot more to talk about. John's books, for instance, for sure, and other tools. I want to be sure that we answered everybody's question though, because I did step away for a bit. So there are people asking questions. What is the name of the one that you bought in the States? Brenda's asking. So did you get to that question, Paul, or no?
So that's the Celestron AVX, which is a very beginner level astrophotography mount. Yeah, and so this is a very basic astrophotography setup. And on learntostargaze.com, if you just click astrophotography, you'll see what all these are.
Okay.
So Yeah.
So there was another question. I'm a total greenhorn on this. Can you talk why choose reflector versus refractor? Did you guys talk about that? Or you already did? Okay, great. I just want to make sure we're caught up. So,
Yep.
Mike asked, do you know if you can buy the star sense for your phone separately?
I don't think so. No, it even comes with a code so that you can't like sell it separately. Yeah, they're very sticky about it.
Okay, I typed the website. Gerald, I'm not sure which website you're looking for. Is it Astro by Cell maybe, or John's website? We'll look at them both. Always Astro by Cell you did ask for, I think. I'm going to put John's in here anyway too. Learn to start. Okay.
Before we get too further into it then, Chris, if we've answered the questions, could I get the Rosanna segment?
Absolutely, that's where we're going to go for next, yes.
Okay, perfect.
But you did want to mention the last gift, which would be the books.
I did want to mention the books, yes.
Yeah.
we're gonna come back to your books. We're gonna come back to your books. Yes, you bet.
We're coming back to the books for sure.
We are.
So, all right. Right now, I'm looking at my live view, and I'm getting a lot of cloud floating back and forth over the moon. So I'll keep an eye on that, and hopefully it'll clear itself off. If it doesn't, the books are wonderful. We can spend more time on them. Okay. So that would be great.
So
all right. So let's get into our Rosanna's segment. So just bear with me one moment while I get everything ready for that. All right. And it should be pretty much ready, I think. There. Okay. Now I just got to do one tingy here, and we're all set. Okay. So we are going to do this week's
Rosanna's Fun Fact.
Okay,
you're way too good at that, Paul. Way too good.
Is your picture up? I don't see it.
No.
Oh, okay. Just one sec.
Okay. You're still presenting us. There. Oh, that's a gearbox. Oh. Oh, here we go. Now we're back to normal.
Okay, she needs another introduction. Sorry about that. And this week's.
We got it.
Rosanna's Fun Fact.
That's Peter. That's Peter Bissema, John. If you didn't know. Peter sent us those sound files, those sound bites, so we could use them with this clip. So, thanks to Peter.
All right, so just give me one more second there, and I'm going to get my information on. I had this all ready before, but I had so much other stuff on the go, I kind of lost it. Okay, so this week Rosanna sent in some really cool information because basically this is the month that there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on with our moon. And the reason I say moon is because we're going to be having 2 full moons this month. So let's get right into it. So this Halloween is going to be different from perhaps any other you have ever experienced unless you are 76 years old or older. When one thinks of Halloween, a common image that pops into everyone's mind is the traditional haunted house, always in front of a full moon. Or maybe, see if this will work here. There we go. Or maybe a witch flying in front of a full moon. But actually, a true full moon is a relatively rare occurrence for Halloween. The last one was in 1944. Now, what is even more exciting about this Halloween is that this full moon is also a blue moon in that it is the second full moon in October and will add into the count of full moons for 2020, a total of 13. Another special number, 13 moons occurring in one calendar year will happen only 7 times in 19 years. This 19-year pattern is called the Metonic cycle. Now, let me just show you the next slide. Okay, so now the moon may seem full a day before or a day after it actually is. Not many of us can really determine the difference between a 98% full moon or 100%. Astronomically, the moon is only full for an instant at a time when this is opposite the sun from the Earth. Now, one must remember that since the Earth is round and daytime and nighttime are not simultaneous for the whole globe, a full moon may not occur at the same day for all earthly locations. If we're really being specific, the calendar must read October 31st, and the full moon time must be from 12 o'clock 0.01 a.m. to 11:59.59 p.m. local time for Astronomy magazine, or from Astronomy magazine. So, for example, in 1944, October the 31st at 7:35 a.m. Central Standard Time, this was the daylight time before daylight savings was used, and the entire planet had a Halloween full moon. Now, in 1955, October the 31st at 12:04 a.m., there was no Halloween full moon for the Western North America and Western Pacific to the international dateline. All locations eastward and to the international dateline had a Halloween full moon. And that goes on for like that. This year, 2020, October 31st, coming up at 9:49 a.m., all locations eastward to the GMT +8 time zone with daylight time, or the GMT +9 hours without daylight time. And in 2039, which is going to be the next one of these, October the 31st will be at 5:36 p.m. with the current public dislike for daylight time. The future of it's unpredictable. So standard time is used to this note. There's one other thing that she writes about the moon. If you have checked out your RAS calendar, you may also have noticed that another name for this upcoming moon is the Blue Hunter Halloween full moon. Say that 3 times really fast. Blue Hunter Halloween full moon. Yeah, okay. So this full moon is called, and I hope I pronounce this right, the Wesleyan new moon, as this is the Wesleyan month, meaning that the shaker of the leaves, or when the leaves are shaken from the trees, for the coast of Salish First Nations in the Sainic Peninsula in BC. So this many-named moon is going to make Halloween different for all other Halloweens in your lifetime. It is already going to be different with COVID, canceling parties and such, and it's going to be rare and special, so no one can cancel the moon. So let's hope that we get clear skies on this moon. Now, if I can just find one more. There it is, and that is this week's.
Rosanna's Fun Fact.
Awesome. Good stuff.
That was great, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome. And thanks.
Although I
Rosanna.
think, although I think Neil Stephenson canceled the moon in his book Seven Eves, which everyone should read before it gets made into a Michael Bay movie.
Oh.
Yeah. Have you guys read Seven Eves?
No.
No.
So the first line in the book is, I think the first line goes something like this: the moon, one day the moon spontaneously and inexplicably explodes.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah.
I'm hooked. I'm hooked.
And then it follows. It's an epic tale that follows humanity through 5,000 years of history.
Oh, wow.
From that point onward.
Sounds interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I look forward to that movie. But the book was, it was excellent.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, I digress.
Let's go back to moon books for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then while Paul gets us, actually, I got to do some photo submissions too, don't I? Eek. I can't let them go.
Well, why don't do you want to do that first?
Do you want to do that first? Okay, I'll try to go quickly. Yeah, for photo submissions for the last, because we didn't get them last week because we talked a lot about light pollution last week. That was our main topic.
We did.
And I don't want to leave out photo submissions because people are sending them in, and I want to try to get to them. So if you can give me just a couple minutes here, we'll get through them. But let me get to our proper screen here. I'm going to present now. While John gets his material ready.
While you're looking for that, Chris, we were just going to talk a little bit about, and this is just purely conversation while you're doing stuff.
Yep.
And about Mars and the rarity of what happened this month with Mars as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So we had our closest approach from Mars to the Earth since 2005, if memory's any good. And so for those who have been looking at that big bright orange globe in the eastern sky in early evening, and basically stays out all night long. For those who don't know what that was Mars. And for those who do know that that was Mars, we've had a fantastic time imaging it because it's very rare that it's that close to us, and it won't be again until 2035. So there's a lot of photographs out there on the internet of Mars and the approach. Last time it was here was 2 years ago, and it was relatively close, but we got sandstormed out, so we couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So this year was just, we were treated to such an amazing thing to look at and photograph, and it's still up in the sky, so don't be afraid to look at it. It's starting to drift off again a little further away because it's already past as close as approach. But it's still something that if you do have a telescope or a pair of binoculars and you want to go out and just have a look at an absolutely wonderful, beautiful looking colored target in the eastern sky, it's still up for quite a little while to go yet. So we want to talk
very
about
bright.
that.
Yep, very bright. Easily picked out.
Oh,
No trouble at all.
absolutely. Yep.
What I had for photos here, I had one from Stefan Picard. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Let me know. Okay, yeah. Stefan sent us this one, the Moon and Venus, morning of October 13th. And his next one here, let me get my mouse around to my fifth screen. Here we are. And he sent us this one, the Moon and Venus, Thursday morning at 6:55. So we have had a number of times this month, or we do have every month, I guess, when the moon passes through the sky and visits all the planets that are visible to us anyway. And we've all been kind of on the same side of the sun right now. So I think that's changing a bit now because Mercury's drifting around and Venus is in our morning sky. But basically, it gives you an opportunity to catch these pairings or conjunctions, I guess we call them, over the month. So thanks, Stefan, for those. Trudy sent us in these couple. She's got full moon and Mars here, back from
nice.
October the 1st.
That's that split rock again, yes.
Yes, it is split rock. Yeah, great spot.
Beautiful.
Right there. Yeah, great spot to catch the moon or the sun rising in that one spot. She's done it a few times, for sure. Yeah. Trudy, get this one from October 3rd. The moon 97% and Mars. And Mars is down here, I guess, in the corner.
Down there,
yeah, there it is.
Oh, she caught that very nicely.
She did, yeah. Both framed in nice.
Yeah, it's a nice color and it's clear. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And this one, she says she attempted a zodiacal light this morning. This is back on the 18th, I guess. Once my eyes adjusted, I could faintly see it naked eye, and I can see it in my photos when they are thumbnail size on my laptop. But when I open the photo to edit it, you really can't tell it's there. It looks like a glow from Venus. I figured out I need a wider angle lens and some more practice, but Venus looks good. So, and you need more money, Trudy. That's the other thing. You can get that if you invest enough money into it. No, great shot. And split rock there again. So yeah, great. Carol Bean sent this one in on October 22nd. Tonight's hazy moon with a dim Jupiter and Saturn in a shot. So that was a really nice offering there that we had just a few days back, where the moon sat between Jupiter and Saturn in our sky. Nice little trio.
Yeah.
And finally, I'm just going to flip through these fairly quickly. A few days ago, I was having some trouble with my page because I had a spammer or whatever, and I had to kind of turn off people posting to my page. And I asked someone if they could please post a photo so I could see that it was working again. Well, I got bombarded. So here's some responses. So this one was from Bridget Smith. Here's one from Patricia Henwood. This one came from Lee Liu. Another one here from Buffy Wasson. Mark Saunier sent this nice capture of the moon. Annette Smith Wright sent this one in to me. Randy Stevens, nice sunset.
Yeah,
Sharon Mead, another shot of the moon. Sebastian Brung, lineup there of planets in the moon. Sherry Susi, beautiful sunset. Faisal Ali with the moon in the shot there. Andrew Robertson.
Oh, nice.
Beauty.
Elephant's trunk.
Heather Brown. Heather Brown sent this one in. Renat Shelton sent this painting
nice
in.
painting.
Yeah, isn't that nice? And Robert Gaudette sent this one in. Nice shot of the moon through the clouds there.
Look at the eye, isn't it?
That's a Halloween one there for sure.
Yeah, looks
And-
like an eye in the sky.
Yeah. And finally, Dan White, which sent this one Milky Way and beautiful.
Nice shot, man.
So I
Beautiful
guess
job.
it just goes to show that people love sharing their photos, and we love getting them here too. So if
Absolutely.
you have some photos to share, please send them in to this address, the Sunday Night Astronomy Show, which would be Sunday Night Astronomy Show at gmail.com, and we would love to put your photos up for everyone to enjoy. So thanks very much, folks, for that. I'm going to close out of that window. I think I'll get us back to this, and I'll go to stop presenting. And thanks, guys.
All right.
And I'll
Great.
yeah. So
Yeah.
when you ask for a photo to see if what something's like, boom. Everybody loves sharing photos.
I need a
love that-
photo. I
Yeah,
didn't get it up.
I love that part. Anyway, okay. So now we're going to go to Mr. Reed is going to tell us a little bit about his books.
Yeah. Well, first, Paul, did you have the moon?
Oh yeah.
How's that looking?
Oh, let me have a look and see if it's still cloudy or
Okay.
not.
And then
I
we can talk about
Right.
50 things to see on the moon,
There we go.
which it was neat. So when I showed this to someone at Celestron, and they were sort of like, "Where has this been?" And they ended up packaging it with all of their beginner telescopes for
Awesome.
the 50th anniversary of the Apollo celebration. So that was really neat. That was
Wow.
sort of, that the publishing this book aligned with that, and then they needed one at the time to go out with those scopes. So that was really a treat for us and the
You bet.
publisher
Yeah.
to get this in so many people's hands, because I think this is my best book. And if you look at Amazon, almost all the reviews are 5 stars, not just 90% of them. The only ones that aren't 5 stars are people are like, "Oh, I can't see it very well on my Kindle."
Yeah.
On my 1980s Kindle. But if you've got the moon there, and so the way that this works, the way the book works is you look at the moon, and so tonight we can see that it's lunar day 8. We're in the waning gibbous phase, and so what you do is you go to the book, and you go to that phase. Let's just open it up there. Or maybe we're at about day 9, so we're going to go to the day 9 section, and then you just go through that section, and here's all the things you can see sort of on day 9. And what we've done uniquely in this book is we've got a different view for every type of telescope. So if you're using binoculars, you'd use this view. If you're using a refractor telescope like the Celestron, then you'd use this little window. And if you're using a Newtonian like this one, you would use this view right here.
That was an excellent thing to do there, John. That was ideal. When I saw that in your book, I said, wow, this guy, like, you really thought of what people are going to be using. And that's the next, because I'm continuously flipping maps around trying to find something that suits the reflector or refractor, right? But that was a great idea. Yeah.
Exactly. So even if you're observing the full moon, we've got a map for each one as well. So there's no flipping. It's just, that's my binocular view. So, and there you go.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. And then the other really cool thing about observing the moon is looking at how things were named. Because the more you observe the moon, you get to know the names of the craters and whatnot. It tells the history of science and philosophy, and a little bit of religion too. So I think the craters toward the south, I might get this backwards, are sort of the newer scientists. So you might have a crater called Newton down there. And at the top are the oldest. So you have like Aristoteles, I think is the name of the crater. They don't use his name. And then so there you're at like 2,500 years ago, all the way down to around about when the lunar craters were named by the Italian astronomer who I'm going to forget his name. I want to call him Rigatoni or something.
Oh, that works.
Like the pasta.
Ravioli.
Yeah. So they were named in around the 1700s or something. So up to then you have scientists with lunar craters named after them. Now smaller features. Or craters that they couldn't see with their telescopes were named more recently. So if you've got a larger telescope, you might be able to find like Aldrin, Michaels, and Collins, craters like that. Mm-hmm. There's also, on the front side of the moon that we can see from Earth, there's 14 craters named after women that you can actually see with a small telescope. And then on the back side, there's another 14 as well. That actually I didn't know when I wrote the book, because the way I wrote this book, I went into it not knowing anything about the moon. And what I did is I just took my, I had a Dobsonian telescope, and I would take it out every night, and I did this for about 6 months, and I would just write down what I thought were the coolest features, not knowing what they were. And then I would go and find out, well, what were they called, and what scientists were they named after? Or if it's a mountain, what mountain range on Earth was it named after? Or if it was they're called rupus, these little like ridges, like the Serpentine Ridge on the moon. Well, those are named after famous geologists. Okay, so what can we learn about that geologist? And so it was just a neat experience going through and learning the epidemiology of all these craters and the stories that went behind them. And then just gave me this huge appreciation for the moon as our nearest neighbor in space. So yeah, so if we would get the moon up on the image, we can sort of talk about some of the cool stuff.
I'm going to, I'm getting some good breaking in the clouds right now. So I'm going to pull the image up.
Okay.
And what you're going to see is an image through a 100mm telescope. And it's actually reduced because I use it for imaging, so I didn't take my reducer off it. So it's actually about 580mm. And so here's the live image now. Again, we're getting some cloud cover, but you should be able to see it.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yep, and this is a 180 flip.
Yeah.
By the looks of it. So it looks like the camera is the camera rotated?
No way. Yeah, I didn't line the camera up for real. But.
Nope.
Right on. Yeah, so lots of cool features here. So can we see the straight wall? That's my favorite on this night, is the straight wall. The other thing that if you're using a larger telescope here, I don't know if you can find it, another fun feature is the Hadley Ryle.
Yeah.
I think definitely can't zoom in enough for that. But so on the right side there, I'm flipping around in my head, or actually rotating it. We've got the Sea of Rains. I never remember the Latin names. Pronunciation is not my thing. So it's like Mare Erebrium or something.
Imbrium, yep.
And that's sort of one of my favorite places. So you've got the Plato crater. I don't know if you can use your mouse and sort of point them out. Plato, that's a really fun one. There's a valley that cuts across. So that's the Alps mountains. They're named after the Alps here on Earth, right through there. There's a big gash in the moon called the Alpine Valley. That's one of my favorite things to see. Maybe a day ago it would have been brighter as the shadows sort of fall on that valley. That's on that moon. That's about, I think, about an inch to the left of Plato.
Right in there.
Yeah, right in there. There's a big gash. It's really fun to look at.
Okay.
And I think, so Copernicus is that one that's really pronounced right there. That's a fun one. So that forms a triangle as you get a couple days later with Kepler and Aristarchus. It's going from memory here.
Yep.
I'm trying to do the rotation.
That's it.
And what's neat about those is you can see the rays. So actually you can see rays from other craters here down in Sea of Serenity, I believe that's what that one is right in the middle. You can see a ray, and that's the ejecta from a recent crater impact, recent being within about 500 million years. And so it's just the ejecta, what it's kicked up is more reflective than the surrounding lunar dust, I guess. So it looks white. So there's lots of features. I don't know, just so much to see on here. I'm just trying to look in at the screen. You can see sort of everyone's favorite Clavius there at the top. I think, yeah, right there. Is it that one?
Yep.
It's kind of small on my screen. I think that one's neat because
I can probably make it a little bigger here. Let's try that.
Let me draw it here. Let me draw Clavius. Can you see that?
Yeah, because
kind of hard.
Yes.
What's neat about Clavius is it's got almost the Fibonacci sequence of crater sizes, because you've got the big crater, and then inside it you have a smaller one, and then a smaller one again, and then a smaller one again, and a smaller one again, in sort of this really cool like Swiss cheese circle. And I always found that was really neat to observe.
Yeah.
John, is the a lot of people use to find out resolution of the telescopes? Because there's a crater on the moon that has, you can go down to a certain resolution. Is that in around that area? Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with that method. So, I mean, when you're looking at the moon, that you're seeing is usually the limiting factor. At least it is for me. In Halifax, where there's a lot of moisture in the air.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. So for me, I'm usually using really big telescopes. So what I'm trying to do is observe the Hadley-Ryle.
Yeah.
And if I can see that, which is very rare, then I know I've got perfect seeing. So the Hadley-Ryle is right off the Sea of Rains, and that's where Apollo 15 landed, I think. And it's one of the only features you can see in the background of the pictures in the Apollo astronauts that you can see with a small telescope. So it's about a kilometer-wide valley on the moon that with a really big telescope, you can see this sort of snake-like valley.
Is that in here?
Right in this area, I think.
It's near there. I don't know if I could. I can't take control of the mouse, can I? But you use those. There's two craters that are right beside.
Just point your finger.
Aristarchus.
Point your finger.
I know. Just point the finger. I'll see if I can bring up a picture. And so that's the Hadley-Ryle is my test to see if I've got perfect seeing. Let me see if I can flick through, but it's just really cool because, like, if you can see that, then you can see something that the Apollo astronauts saw when they were there, and that always sort of blows my mind. There's the Ripheus Mountains. Oh yeah, you could see the lunar M today, so that was Apollo 12. Was near there. Yeah, so the Hadley-Ryle looks like this. You can sort of see it snake in there beside that crater.
Yeah.
But the way you find it, I can't see where I'm pointing here. There you go.
Yeah. Hadley-Ryle right
So use those two craters that are right beside is it Aristarchus? I think so.
Right, those two right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I'm trying to find that lunar M because that's quite predominant, but I don't know if I can see
Yeah, so that's the Ripheus. It's up there, about right centered in the screen right now. Yeah, but it might be about on the Terminator.
Oh, right on the Terminator. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, now keep in mind, if you've got even a small telescope, it's going to look even a little bit clearer than this to your eye because cameras don't do as good a job as contrast as your eye. Yeah. So if you've got a small telescope, your view is going to be even slightly better than what we're looking at here. Mm-hmm. So if you're using a book like this, you'd have no problem picking out the objects that are visible on a night like tonight.
I'm trying to brighten it up a bit.
There you go.
Yeah.
It helps.
There. Just trying to brighten up the Terminator area and see what we can see.
The amazing thing about the moon is that, I mean, I'm always, there are two objects that I keep coming back to. It's this one and Saturn. And it's probably the two that are the most popular for outreach as well, for people that you get that wow factor, right? They look at it and they go, wow.
Cloud.
I was going to say, wow, where'd the moon go? Oop, okay.
Yeah, it's neat. Like for size comparison, the smallest detail, so a pixel on here is about a mile, I'm guessing. So the moon is diameter of about 5,000 kilometers or something. Yeah, so you're not going to zoom in and like see a lunar lander or anything. No. I think I calculated how big a telescope you would need and how much it would cost, and I ended up calculating it in terms of world economies.
Oh, wow.
So you would need to see the lunar lander, I think I calculated you would need 17 times the entire world economy to create a telescope with enough area.
You might as well go there. You might as well go there, right?
Yeah, you might as well go there. It's a little cheaper.
Yeah, I keep losing it there now.
Yeah. But on Saturn, 1 pixel is going to be like the diameter of the Earth almost.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to switch back because I think we've lost it. Sure. So I'll go stop presenting. There we go.
No, but the good thing about the moon is that, I mean, you can get that that change every night. Like, oh, what's coming up next? And
Yeah.
and following that Terminator line, I mean, it fascinates people to show them that view through a telescope. If I could travel the world with just this little guy right here, or even maybe like an 8-inch Dob, I would travel the world with one of them and show people the moon. How many people have looked at the moon but not really looked at the moon like we have, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Even with binoculars, the view that you can get it with binoculars is incredible. And people never think to use binoculars to take a look at the moon or to study the moon, as you do in your book. I mean, it was fantastic that you included the binocular view there, because most people have a set of binoculars, at least of a quality, at least, that you'd be able to look at the moon with. So
Absolutely. I mean, and there you can see Tycho and its rays during the full moon. You can definitely see all the lunar seas, and some of the darker craters. Like there's a lot you could do with binoculars on the moon. So I like to find a way to stabilize myself, because when I use binoculars, it bounces around a lot.
Right.
And so you got to be careful. Like sometimes I'll lie on my back on a picnic table, or I actually had the whole rig with the counterweight.
Oh, you did?
But I lent it to someone
The
because
parallelogram.
it was always too much hassle to set up.
Yeah. I find if you put your hands out, or your hands out at the very end of the glass, and bring your elbows into your chest, kind of thing like that, that does help a little bit. But it is, I mean, the more you magnify, of course, the more you're going to shake too, and the colder you are, the more you're going to shake, especially this time of year. So, but yeah, I mean,
yeah, exactly. But if you're observing the moon, one of the most fun things you can do to appreciate it is to draw what you see. It's a really fun activity. So, and a lot of people, so that's one of the things that we do at St. Mary's for the astronomy for sort of non-scientists, so Astronomy 101. And their assignment is to look at the moon and draw it as an art form.
Okay.
And it's fascinating because some of the students, they'll draw it and they'll be like, that was really fun. And then they'll go back and they'll paint it in acrylics on canvas and present it as a gift to the professor because of how much it meant to them to go through that process.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Which was really neat. So our astrophysics department at St. Mary's is just covered in these pictures that the students from, Astronomy 1000 have gone and painted. And that's the other reason when I did 50 Things to See with a Telescope Activity Workbook that Chris helped me with.
Yep.
We've got a whole page for every phase of the moon for you to draw what you see.
Hey, Chris, could you pin John so we could be?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Hang on, John. We'll pin you up here. There we go.
Yeah. So in the activity workbook, for every phase of the moon, if we start here at, what my son calls the toenail, the crescent here. So as the moon grows, you can draw it every night. You'll see different things and make, and so it's just a really neat activity to go through and to really appreciate what you see, first quarter right there. And then there's really fun things like the lunar X. I didn't call it out in here because it's a more challenging topic, but some things are only visible for like 3 hours. And so you make it a challenge for yourself to see them. And I think I provided instructions somewhere in here on sort of how to, there's some tips you could do with sort of the eraser or with cotton balls and get these really like photoreal pictures just with a pencil and sketching it.
That's
awesome. Yeah.
And you don't need to, I mean, we don't need to see the moon that particular night to get that. I mean, you can Google a picture of the moon at first quarter or the moon at 3 days old and bring up the moon and draw in, what you need to from there. But you can, like Paul has mentioned before, of studying the moon. Let me get you back off pin there. There we go. Paul's mentioned before about learning about the moon by taking a picture of the moon and then just sitting down and comparing that against, a book that might have identifications on it and studying the moon. And that, I mean, you don't have to have the moon up in the sky to study it.
Mm-hmm.
You may want to pick out a few objects that you can see and then say, okay, that's going to be available on day 8, so I'll wait till day 8 till I get that. And if it's not available on day 8, then Google day 8 of the lunar surface,
Yeah.
and you might get an option to take a look at it that way. But it's
always going to look different though, because the Terminator, the angle that it meets with sort of a meridian on the moon is different every cycle. And so the way the shadows fall is unique, and you're going to see valleys highlighted differently, and like the scarps or like the different, geological features aren't going to look the same. Even if they're on the, you see them at the same time in the next month, they're going to look different. And that's really what's cool about photographing it or sketching it, is you're going to catch these details that are almost unique to you. Like you're going to be the only person that sketches that.
Yeah.
And then, you could scan it, and it makes great wall decorations.
Absolutely.
I've only ever tried to sketch once, and I sketched Copernicus, and I did it during a day moon, and because it was just so easy to see what I was drawing, and I did it with bino viewers, so that made it so I could really get in there and have a good look. And I tell you, the detail that I pulled out and learned, and what I could visually see, made me actually a better observer, because I'm looking for far more finite detail when you're sketching, because then all of a sudden you're starting to use dimension, and you're starting to use how far away is that from that, and how deep and dark is that, and all this different stuff, and it really makes you a much better observer.
And again, your eye is going to have better contrast than the camera typically with the moon.
Right.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it's really neat as an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
We have
love
a fella in Moncton that I think Emil, and he does a lot of sketching, and he talks a lot about that, about what he learns from it, and how much more, and like you said, everybody sees differently too, but how much more you can get out of it, and the techniques that's on your book in terms of how to use the erasers to get certain features and all that. He's covered a lot of that kind of stuff, so it's absolutely amazing.
And really, sketching is a good activity for anything you're doing. So like for every constellation in the book, we've got, or every target, we've got a place to sketch it, because it's just so important. And especially if you're using this, this is the workbook, this isn't the book, but if you're a school and you're looking for a project to get people to appreciate space, like this is it.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to get them putting pen to paper.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if we're just doing the constellations, like I didn't draw them in. I put a picture of it, so you would actually go in with your pencil and connect the dots. With the constellations, because it just gives you such a better appreciation for the night sky. And then it's a gateway to science. It's the idea.
That's it.
Is all the sketching that you do in your books on your book, or is there certain papers and stuff that you would recommend, or are those recommendations in the book?
So for me, I just recommend you sketch it in the book.
Right in the book. Okay.
Yeah, it's neat. So someone actually used my book to complete Explore the Universe with Rask. And it was so cool for me as the author to go and see someone who had drawn, and covered every page in notes and sketches.
Nice.
And the idea with the book, it just made it so easy for her to document all her progress as a beginner astronomer, because it's all there, like the constellations, all the stars you needed for Explore the Universe. If it's a star, you just check. You don't need to draw a star. You just check it out.
Right.
And but the idea is it just made it so simple. So all you have to concentrate on is observing. You're not concentrating on the paper finding, or like what do I need to write down? It's like, no, you're writing the date and time, and then you draw what you see. You don't need to think about anything else except being immersed in the experience of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It demystifies the whole experience too, because a lot of hobbies have a steep learning curve, and this one doesn't have to have. Like it can be a very easy thing to get out and just take a small patch of sky at a time.
Yeah.
Like I can eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? So.
And that's how the books are laid out. Like if you look at any of that's a star map, but we get it up here. I do one target per page on the books.
Right.
And I think that's why these are, the most popular stargazing books out there, because people pick it up and they just open it to a random page and they can go see that in the sky.
That's right.
Yeah.
and they're like, wow. And then they go and review it. That's why the kids version of this, it has 1,500 reviews right now. 1,000 of them in the last since COVID.
Wow.
1,000 reviews. And it's because people have gotten it, just gone in their backyard, opened it to a random page, realized how easy it is, and then gone back to Amazon and written a review. And those reviews are real. I don't game Amazon at all. That is completely organic. And anyway, so that's what I've done to sort of simplify the stargazing experience.
Yep. And it has it makes it easy for people to get started in the hobby and to select equipment, like even binoculars, to get started. And you don't need to start with a telescope. If you can't do the $300 or $400, spend $100 on a nice set of binoculars. That will last you a lifetime as well. And you can use the binoculars in the daytime. They're portable, they're lightweight, they give you the proper orientation, the proper view, and they're reasonably inexpensive. And they can really get you started. Don't get a really heavy pair, 20 by 50s or something that are going to be really hard to support. 10 by 50s, 7 by 35s, those are all pretty adequate.
7 by 50s are my favorite.
Okay, yeah.
Because I actually went and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna get these 10 by 50s or whatever with the zoom, and I'm like, I got the nicest pair ever. But now I like my regular ones.
Yeah.
Even this was like too fancy because it's got the zoom. Yeah. But
so you don't have to get
simple
fancy.
Is better.
And the sky hasn't changed in your lifetime, and it won't change in our lifetime. So, I mean, everything that you look at is going to be in the same place, next time you go to look for it, right? Pretty well. Same time of year. So, yeah. Takes us 250 million years to go around the galaxy, so it isn't going to change too much for our time. Yeah.
I mean, I think Sirius will probably move 30 arc seconds in your life.
Okay.
Yeah. You can. So if you observe when you're a kid and you sketch the background stars, it might move a pencil tip width in your telescope.
Yeah.
There's a project. You just got to start when you're 8 years old, and then when you're 98,
get them when they're young.
Sketch it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sketch it again.
Just gonna pull that cataract down and see that.
Well, guys, with that note, we're probably going to sign off for the night because we're into an hour and 36 minutes. Here we go again. How time flies, huh? Yeah. We have a lot of fun.
I had a lot of fun. Thanks, Chris, for having me on. And Paul, it's great to get to know you better.
You bet. We have really enjoyed it. So in closing tonight, folks, again, our special thanks once again for your continued support here. I'd like to thank our friend John Reed for joining us tonight. John's been a pleasure, and know that you'll always have an open invitation here to join us anytime at all. So please come back. And thanks again to Rosanna for her continued contributions to our show as well. And remember, folks, we do love getting your photos. So send them to SundayNightAstronomyShow@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to include them in one of our broadcasts. We also look for suggestions for topics for future shows. So if you have anything you would like to discuss with us on a future episode, please send your request to the same address, SundayNightAstronomyShow@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to make it happen for you. Also ask that if you enjoyed the content here tonight and you joined us from YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. And please let your family and friends know as well that we are here at the same time every Sunday night to help educate you and entertain you on occasion about the night sky. So for now then, folks, from Paul and John and I and an absent Mike, stay safe, everyone. We wish you all clear skies, and we hope to see you all here again next week. And as we like to say here, John, keep your scopes pointed up.
Pointed up.
Have a great week, everyone. Good night.
And for Mike, big hands.
And for Mike, big hands. And